Good morning. So, 100 days in, President Donald Trump is totally transforming the United States economy into an industrial and manufacturing superpower once again. Forget Wall Street, it's all a farce. What we're seeing is the transformation into an economy that nurtures the creative existence of the working men and women, farmers, entrepreneurs, inventors who live in what our elites derisively call flyover country. That's what they call the entirety of the United States, absent the coasts. The president and his secretary of the Treasury, Scott Bessent, call this a great transformation in favor of Main Street, not Wall Street. Truth be told, it is the most daring use of American system economic methods since Franklin Roosevelt's war mobilization. And it is hardly accidental that Wall Street and the City of London labeled Roosevelt also an authoritarian dictator on a par with Hitler. Roosevelt also repeatedly mocked and trolled them. Roosevelt also had his wars with the courts, since very so often the laws and the rules he encountered were relics of a dying system, the one he had to supersede. Because of the brainwashing emanating from such places as Harvard University, few Americans know anything about the unique American system of economy first invented by Alexander Hamilton. Fewer still can tell you about the spiritual optimism and happiness that occurs when a population joins to build great and transformative infrastructure and other projects. When a president dares them to explore new frontiers in space and science, the molecular and microscopic domains, and make that a dominant and popular trend in society. In his speech at the University of Alabama last night, Trump once again invoked his love of outsiders, the person like Elon Musk who challenges prevalent but static and dying ideas about human beings and nature and therefore creates and invents a new future based on new discoveries and principles. Likewise, he also vowed this week to once again honor Christopher Columbus, our discoverer who has been canceled by stupid and fake ideologies emanating from Harvard historians, among others, who hate the United States, pure and simple. President Trump is also conducting a war for peace in the world, led by negotiations to settle the Russia-Ukraine war and launch a new and historic relationship with Russia, which is even more important than settling the war. Trump is leveraging this new relationship with Russia in order to prevent a potential regional war in the Middle East and prevent a nuclear war between India and Pakistan. Russia is key to helping him with these relationships. All of these wars are an instrument of the dying British financial empire. The Leviathan erected and metamorphosized repeatedly after World War II, and in which we almost disappeared in the Biden administration, becoming once again a colony of the British Empire. I'm Barbara Boyd, and this is your Saturday Wrap. Today, we're going to take a brief but deep dive into the principles of the new American economy President Trump is creating and the status of his effort to prevent World War III. They are more related than the media lie cycle will allow your mind to grasp. Vice President J.D. Vance gave a speech at Nucor Steel in South Carolina on Thursday, which speaks to what Vance emphatically declared to be this American economic renaissance. The use of the term renaissance is not an empty PR phrase in the vice president's vocabulary. In human history, the Renaissance was a time of great art, great discovery of new continents and how the universe itself is organized, a triumphal creation of a new and prosperous future out of the stagnant, rotting, and evil feudal system, done all of it by the forceful application of human creativity. In his speech, Vice President Vance derided the economy we are now superseding, in which we no longer built anything. We outsourced all of our physical production to China and other places, making us completely dependent on other countries for the necessities of life itself. It was an economy which sowed pessimism, where it was declared that mind-numbing coding and maximum consumption of bread and circuses entertainments would supersede a self-sufficient industrial economy, and our labor force, the creative key to any economy, was relegated to gig jobs and a constant struggle to simply survive. Instead of that evil utopian construction, Vance hailed the workers at Nucor Steel's modern steel plant Thursday. It is a technological marvel using AI and other tools to produce steel from scrap metal. As Vance put it, it is building with both your hands and your mind. He praised Alexander Hamilton, the founder of the American system of economics, directly in the course of his talk. He does that over and over again, invites you to read Hamilton. He also said that involvement in building great projects with modern technology creates a type of pride and optimism in human beings, which had been largely missing during our dark years. The pride of a father being able to tell his kids, I built that. Now, Brian Lance has posted on his Substack, Physical Economics, a list of all of the executive orders of Trump's first 100 days in terms of the new builder's economy, stripping away the regulations which have prevented the systematic use of nuclear power and other fuels, creating the basis for an advanced defensive shield against incoming missiles, empowering the colonization of the moon and Mars. It is breathtaking. Now, the negotiations to end the war and create a new and great relationship between the United States and Russia remains very, very tense. On one side stands the old world of Europe, tending increasingly toward real fascism, not the fake news kind used to attack Trump. The German government took major steps toward banning the ascendant AfD political party, which is ready to win the next election and enjoys massive support in the German population. Mike Benz has a good summary of how this came about through the transition of NATO from a military force into the enforcers of a kind of soft power totalitarianism based on the New World Order ideas for NATO promulgated in the 1990s by the British agent George Soros. It involved the private armies of NGOs, foundations, and paid-for rioters, which are now being dismantled here by the Trump administration, but are completely extant in Europe. Secretary Rubio and Vice President Vance rightly condemned the German action, which, has declared the AfD extremists and subjected them to massive authorized surveillance and counterintelligence techniques designed to destroy them. Zelensky's Ukraine is of a similar authoritarian martial law status, although he claimed under Biden to be defending democracy and using that nation for the proxy war with Russia. Russia's objectives for its special military operation are now within its reach. That is, a neutral, non-NATO Ukraine, which won't use a peace agreement to rearm as Ukraine and its Anglo-American sponsors did with the Minsk ceasefire accords previously. And the other goal, safety for Ukraine's historically Russian provinces as members of the Russian Federation, along with banning the neo-Nazi movement in Ukraine, which acts as a violent gangster control point against the peace aspirations of the Ukrainian people. The present peace proposals being circulated are close to that, but key parts remain in conflict, and it is time for the two sides to meet directly to hash it out, excluding, of course, the European fascists and the British from such talks. In my view, it's not only that, whether the facts on the ground are on Russia's side, it's a question of whether morality, history, and the best interests of the United States are on Russia's side. The only thing that keeps the United States from admitting that outright, as Trump seems to want to do, is the history beginning with Russiagate, which put the Republican Party and most of Washington on the side of the British Empire and its centuries-old lust for conquering Russia. Ukraine, right now, is threatening to attack the World War II Victory Day celebrations in Russia on May 9th. And Russia is on the offensive across all fronts in Ukraine. This is largely covered up and disguised in Western coverage. Steve Witkoff, as Trump's personal emissary, has been subjected to all sorts of attacks for both his efforts in bringing about a new great power relationship with Russia and his efforts to prevent a war with Iran and settle the Israeli-Hamas war, and he's under attack by those invested in a permanent state of war on this planet. They profit from it. President Trump and Steve Witkoff have hinted that they understand fully that the settlement of wars involves locating and evoking the best aspects of the extant cultures of the warring parties. In Russia's case, it is recognition that Russian culture is a superior Western culture, that its ability for resilience in advanced engineering and science has allowed it to prevail against the best NATO could throw at it, and effectively prevail against the British Empire's historical desire to financially rape and loot it, a desire which led to 2 world wars and could have and might still lead to a 3rd. In Ukraine, the best tradition is the scientific and intellectual tradition of such Ukrainians as the great Vladimir Vernadsky, a tradition subverted thoroughly by the British and George Soros after the fall of the Berlin Wall and their turning of Ukraine into a depopulated vassal state for war against Russia. Just imagine if Russia and the United States were to join forces in exploiting the wealth in the Arctic on behalf of humanity, and join forces fully in exploring space. Imagine if Russia and the United States were to join in denuclearizing the world by jointly developing robust defenses against nuclear and other advanced threats. Such bold plans should be what is on the table rather than the necessity to constantly react to the provocations of the British and their holdover assets in the U.S. government, particularly the rotten neocons in the Congress and those still operating in the security state. The population would support such initiatives. The replacement of Mike Waltz was welcome, but the cleanout is incomplete. To the extent these neocon forces continue to be honored in any respect, it creates a type of mental fishbowl in which the imaginative and creative actions of the president are subverted by pragmatic adaptation to Washington's evil and dirty power dynamics. We'll treat this in more depth on Monday and on the Promethean Action website next week. Bob Ingram will be giving a breakthrough class on President McKinley's defense of the Black population tonight. Please tune in. I'm sure you will enjoy it. I'll see you again on Monday.
Thanks for watching. Please take a moment and subscribe to our free newsletter at PrometheanAction.com.